Hello and bienvenido San Antonio. Welcome to the Alamo Hour, discussing the people, places, and passion that make our city. My name is Justin Hill, a local attorney, a proud San Antonian, and keeper of chickens and bees. On the Alamo Hour, you'll get to hear from the people that make San Antonio great and unique and the best kept secret in Texas. We're glad that you're here. All right, welcome to the Alamo Hour. Today's guest is our first repeat guest. You may remember he had a giggle fit last time and said that he met Bashar al-Assad on a dating website. Dr. David Lesch from Trinity University. Thank you for being here.
I can't talk about that.
Yeah. Well, so before this, I said I was going to ask him things because lately in our friendship, he has become very self-important in telling us things he can and cannot discuss in public settings.
I can't talk about that either.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm going to be a great guest. I can't talk about anything. Why the hell do you have me on here?
Most of this could just me being like, hey, tell me about insert a thing or person, and then having you turn red as you laugh and say you can't talk about it.
Exactly.
And some, like our previous conversation about your telephone, you know, I could ask you about that, and you also would have to say,
well, they're
I
listening
can't
in
talk
on the
about
telephone
that.
right now.
Well, I think they are.
Probably are.
Probably
whoever they are.
Advertise. I don't know.
Well, here I am talking about it. So you already got me to, you know.
Well, so on most of my episodes, I normally go through like a top 10 list and what are you into and what do you like, but I generally know that about you. But what have you been up to during the shutdown?
Writing my next book.
Oh yeah, no. What's the title of it? It's not ambitious at all. Go. What is it?
It's the history of the Middle East from the Prophet Muhammad to the present.
78,000 pages long.
And I'm through 5 pages, man. Mm-hmm. At this rate, you know, in the 23rd century, I will be done.
I asked you how you broke down what to include and what not to include, and you used the word triage.
It's historical triage.
Yeah,
absolutely. I've done that before. I mean, you just can't go over every little thing, or else it would be 78,000 pages. This will be about 350, 400 pages. Okay. Oxford University Press will be putting out.
So it'll be $250.
So only for you.
Yeah, you had
only
one book that was approachable
copy.
And
that's only price. If I don't autograph it. If I autograph it, it's down to like $2 or $3.
I paid $7.80 for your Syria book on Amazon. Does that make you feel bad?
I mean, the thing is, you got it used. You got it used, and it was only out for like a month. It's like, okay, so who read it and sent it back, or who didn't read it and just sent it back? You know.
And what a jerk friend!
Yeah, exactly. It was like, geez, maybe I can make some money off this. Well, because it's like $15, right?
So is that the only book you're working on now?
Well, I think one at a time is enough.
I think you said you were working on more than one.
Sometimes I am,
okay.
But this time, no. This is focusing on that. And so I've gotten a lot of writing done since I'm at home, you know, more often than not traveling as much, obviously. I'm halfway through. It should be published in 2022. I'll finish the manuscript first draft by this summer. And it is for the interested general public. I'm trying to write it at that level, which is why there's historical triage, which is why I'm not going into the details of this, that, and the other thing that would bore people and, you know, put them to sleep like my other books.
So between
this actually will be interesting. You know?
Between your upcoming book and Tom Friedman's From Beirut to Jerusalem, which one do you think will be better?
Oh God, are you kidding me?
Okay.
No, and I like Tom. He's a good guy. Okay. But you know,
he wrote one really good book.
It's a good book. Yeah. And I read it, and it's not bad. It's, you know, based on first person experiences.
That was my first book to read about the Middle East. And it kind of got me interested.
And this is why you're so tendentious and skewed and
this
prejudiced.
Was freshman year of college.
Yeah, and that's the only book you read in college, I heard.
No, I read quite a few in college.
Law books, but, you know, nothing
else.
In
law school I read law books. What kind of jerk sits around
I don't think I've ever read a novel.
That's
That's the thing. Since I have not read a novel since college.
Grisham?
I mean, no, nothing. Huh. Nothing. Because, you know, I read for fun books about like World War I or the Civil War or some other country, just because I like to accumulate knowledge and learn about these other things. And actually, I've read some historical novels that I've assigned for my class. So, just so they have something other than read than dry academic material. Like
so
my books.
You've been writing a book. You keep quite the social calendar that I have learned to know. Where have you been your haunts? It used to be J Prime, but you have a new haunt.
I'm not quite the social calendar.
God, I went to one of them. I thought it was going to be me, you, and Tim cutting up and having a good time, and instead it's you holding court with like 14 people.
I can't believe it. But we had like the whole restaurant, right? We were socially distanced and spaced.
You can't get your vibe going with a group of 14.
No, because I can't rely on you and Tim actually showing up.
When we say we're going to be there.
No, you are so unreliable.
Hold on.
You are so
Tim
unreliable.
Maybe.
But he was driving.
If I say I'm going to be there, I'm there.
And so I invite all these other people in case you guys don't come.
I mean, I just usually tell you no.
So, you know. Yeah. It was a good time, wasn't it?
Okay, so where have you
kept
been
moving
going?
around away from people.
Oh, God. Well, because nobody was, I felt like they weren't being safe.
And only
even
half
though we
of
were
us got
outdoors.
COVID. Only half of us. So
Well,
I think
did
that's
not.
a successful social outing, you know?
I appreciate you already making COVID jokes.
It's terrible. I know. No,
Okay,
but
so where have you been going? What's the name of that spot?
J Prime?
No, the other one.
No, the other one, Frida's.
Okay, that's right.
Frida's, Mexican restaurant bar in Stone Oak as well. And good friend, Fernando Davila, opened it up.
Oh, I thought it was Davil.
One or the other.
I don't think there's an A at the end.
Okay, well then I guess he's not such a good friend if I don't remember his last name. No, Fernando's a great guy.
And for perspective,
incredible musician.
We're recording this at 2 p.m. sober, so I just want to be clear
not
about
quite,
this.
not for long. And Justin Hilla, who is a very good friend of mine, is interviewing me right now.
Anywhere else you've been going? Any other spots, new spots?
Went to Perry's, took my son out for his birthday on January 22nd because he likes that. And,
nice.
And, just about every place I go, they're doing a good job in socially distancing. Now, with this new variant out, I'm going to be, I think, a little bit more careful.
Which variant are you the most scared of? South Africa, South America, or Britain?
Can I get back to you on that?
I think I'm most
scared
scared
studied the South African
America.
One. South America, just because,
did you read about what happened in Mana? Is that how you say
happened?
it?
Who?
In Brazil?
What happened?
Isn't that how you say it? Manaus?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, there was like a city in Brazil that had been completely wiped out by...
but it's Brazil. I mean, it's Bolsonaro, or whatever the hell his name is. He's, worse than Trump in terms of whatever, who is not taking it seriously and so forth.
But they had like
not
a huge
taking it
outbreak.
Seriously and cutting down the Amazon rainforest. So, that's two strikes.
I'm trying to give you some information about international affairs, and you just won't accept that I know something you don't know.
We don't even know the name of the town. So
Mana
what? Mana
All I
City?
think about is Muppets. Mana. All right. You've been writing a book. You've been... same haunts. You really haven't branched out, unfortunately, so nothing to add there.
Well, it's places I know, places I trust that I know that they take.
Did you just go to Pakistan?
No, but I may.
Oh, well, you were planning on it not long ago. Have you done any international travel as part of your job or what?
No.
And I guess you can't do like diplomacy and stuff like that by Zoom.
Via Zoom, right? Yeah. Talk about. I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that either. Well, we're really getting far, aren't we? No, you can't. You can't do that stuff. At first I didn't miss it because I was doing so much, and it's like, oh man, I can just sit back and enjoy. But now I miss it. I want to get on a plane and go to Europe. I want to get on a plane and go to the Middle East, and hopefully this thing develops as it has been developing, and I'll go to Islamabad in Pakistan soon. And I've never been there. So.
You might be the only person that's sitting around right now pining for the days to go to Islamabad.
I'm not pining for Islamabad.
Kinda.
I'm pining to get on a plane and go internationally. And this is all that's offered me. Well, okay, fine.
All right.
I'm signing up for it.
All I thought of was...
I heard Islamabad's a beautiful city,
I'm sure there are parts of it.
I won't be going around. What my contact there said that Pakistan takes the COVID-19 situation about as seriously as Texas. And I said, okay, I guess I'm going to get it then when I go there.
Yeah.
But as he said, look, the Pakistanis... they're taking certain precautions, but life goes on, and it's like they've been through these wars. They've been through, Al-Qaeda being in the midst of Osama bin Laden being there, and all those, the stuff with India. So it's like, this is nothing. This is nothing. And he said, what are you Texans worried about? And I said, well, there was the Alamo.
Mosquitoes?
Come on.
I mean, yeah. This is self-inflicted wounds. Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about a few other things because last time we kind of ran out of time. You sent me an article. It's funny. You like to send me articles like, talk to me about this thing that makes me sound awesome. We might talk about that.
Why would I send you something that makes me sound like an idiot?
I mean, I want to talk to you about some things that have not come to fruition yet, but that you have been...
Because I still need to convince you I'm awesome. You're not entirely convinced.
Well...
I keep trying.
Because I know you.
Even making up these articles and stories.
Well, so let's talk about Austin Tice. I found that to be an interesting story. There's an article that you partly wrote about that situation over there. Why are you looking at me like that? This is public information.
Austin.
This is an interesting story.
Well, it's a heart rendering story.
And there's a Texas connection to this, right?
Yeah, he and his family are from Houston, and Austin was a contract photojournalist at the time with the Washington Post. And in August 2012, he went into Syria, and he was taken captive. And I've been working with his parents closely. since that time to do whatever I can to help with my contacts in Syria. For those of you listening don't know, I'm a specialist on Syria, and I've been to Syria quite a bit. And as Justin referred to in the beginning, I got to know the president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, not over eHarmony, but through...
That is what you said, yeah.
It is what I said, yeah. Through, just through contacts and so forth. And so whatever I can do to help in terms of advice and whatever. And I just feel for them so much. We have every indication that Austin is still alive. There have been a million different reports on who is holding him. And we're just trying to do our best to work with various groups, and including the Syrian government, to try to find him and bring him home.
Good-looking kid. He grew up in Texas.
Former Marine, which may have been a problem in his getting taken, because probably someone went on his Facebook page or something, and there's
he was maybe at Georgetown Law School at one point. Before he dedecided to go be kind of a
photojournalist,
like a photojournalist in war zones and stuff. Yeah,
but he has that adrenaline, and that's the photojournalists that do that. This is how they make they want that great photo, they want that great interview.
And he disappeared over there in what, 2013?
August 2012.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And so, best I could tell, doing a little research before you came on, last time somebody confirmed he was alive was 2018 publicly, and then just kind of information sporadic.
Yeah, there's been little information, and there's some intelligence that suggests that the group holding him took him to a hospital in Beirut in order to receive some treatment. Don't know exactly. It was within the last 3 years, probably 3 or 4 years. So that's good news in two ways. One, evidence he's proof of life. And second, that the group that is holding him is interested in keeping him alive.
Sure.
So, and certain groups with whom the Obama and then Trump administration, and probably now the Biden administration, along with the parents, have been dealing with, are negotiating as if he's alive.
Okay.
So
from just sort of a 30,000 foot perspective, how do you even start approaching a situation like that? Not in this particular situation, but if somebody reached out, you had connections, do you go through the State Department? Do you reach out to your own connections? What's kind of God forbid somebody's in that situation, but if they are and they were able to reach out, it's just fascinating that these aren't kind of public channels. It's sort of a multi-faceted approach.
Well, you contact the State Department, pretty much, and then they rope in the NSC. And it really depends on the administration in power. Are they putting an emphasis on trying to get hostages back worldwide, not just in the Middle East or in Syria? And there is a special envoy for hostage affairs that was created, I believe, during the late Obama, maybe early Trump administration, which is a White House position that can have daily access to the president. And then there's what's called a hostage recovery fusion cell. And these are the groups with whom I've been interacting, as well as the Tice family, and even more so, much more so than me over the years. And this hostage recovery fusion cell is a conglomeration of many different departments and agencies, NSA, NSC, State Department, Defense Department, intelligence agencies, so forth. And these are the guys, they not only engage in negotiation with groups in the front lines, but also hostage rescue. Those are serious folks. If there's an opportunity to do that, there hasn't been, because we just don't know the exact location, and we think there's a diplomatic or negotiated path, perhaps, to getting him back.
Your experience is Middle East, obviously, and particularly probably more Syria than anywhere. Mm-hmm. What would be the upside for a country like that to hold on to someone like this who really doesn't have any sort of...
Well, it depends on what type of emphasis the United States government puts on getting hostages back. And this is the conundrum. This is the catch-22. The Trump administration, as you know, has made a big deal about getting hostages back. It's become a personal issue for Donald Trump, and he's actually done a fairly good job at that. And a number of hostages have returned from Afghanistan, from Iran, from Korea, et cetera.
Do you think it's philosophical or photo op?
No, I with him, everything's photo op.
Kind of, right?
Yeah, but as the parents of Austin Tice or any of these other hostages, what do they care?
Sure.
As long as the catch is, though, one, you need that sort of energy at the top to get the whole bureaucracy to focus on this.
Sure.
On the other hand, the other country sees, oh, the president is focusing on this, so our asking price has gone way up.
Or does it encourage them to kidnap more?
It could. Yeah, it could. And that's one of the things, I've been talking about, we want the president involved, but not too much. Where do you calibrate it and find that? Because especially in the Trump administration, only he could really generate the type of bureaucratic momentum at all levels. In fact, the Tice family and I actually engineered a situation that compelled Trump to do something, and he did it, and everybody got in line.
Was there a tweet involved?
No.
I mean, I kind of joke, but seriously.
Yeah, but he did, after, but he actually gave a press conference.
Oh, wow.
Where he asked the Syrian government to affect or help in the return of
Is there a
finding and help the
belief
return.
that the Syrian government has direct access, or just that they could pressure if needed?
There's a belief that they can be very helpful in
gotcha.
affecting his return.
Has there been any demands for Austin Tice?
Yeah, there has been negotiations,
Okay.
and there's been some demands like we can help you if this, and this.
Gotcha.
And those
Is it
things
always
have
like
been
that in those types of situations
so.
that you've been in, or is it sometimes just a radical group wants to make
it can be individual groups.
Okay.
It can be individual groups. A lot of these individual groups are one-offs from the government to give plausible deniability to the government, yet the government can still reap the benefits of a return on this.
Because of all those beheadings you saw in the Middle East for so long of Americans.
But they weren't hostages. They just did it for show.
Sure.
For props and show and to put their, names in the spotlight. And
so is Austin Tice sort of the most high-profile hostage being held in Syria
in
right now?
fact, Time magazine put out, every so often they put out this list of, in essence, the highest profile hostages or the ones that need attention. And,
I think I read that.
And number one is Austin Tice for most of the time. Sometimes it varies, but he's been there, if not the longest, pretty close to the longest of any hostage anywhere, U.S. hostage anywhere in the world.
So is there any continuity among administrations on issues like that? I mean, those should not be political types issues, but are they in essence still politically driven at the end of the day?
They're political, but there's also, you talked earlier about philosophical differences on foreign policy, whereas the Trump administration might be open. And this was one of the things that could be good about the Trump administration is that he was so erratic and unpredictable that he opened space for possible negotiation because he was not constrained by any paradigms of foreign policy that are known and conventional foreign policy ideas. And so, that did open space in Korea and in Syria, in Iran, in Afghanistan, and so forth. The Biden administration coming in right now has, I think, will develop a more conventional foreign policy towards Syria, which may or may not mean less contact. If it means less contact and less willingness to negotiate with a government that certain elements in the Biden administration see as illegitimate and should be removed, then it's going to be tough.
Sure.
If they see the government as, we don't like it, but it's there, it won the war, civil war, we have to deal with it, then maybe that will open some space for stuff like Austin Tice.
Are there multiple governments in Syria right now?
No, just the one. I mean, in Idlib in the northwest, you have various opposition groups still holding in control of most of that province with Turkish backing. That's not going to last all that much longer.
But we
You have the Kurds in the
recognize
northeast.
Assad's government in Syria.
We don't.
Oh, okay.
No.
Has that been the forever policy?
No, it's just been since the beginning of the civil war.
Who do we recognize as the legitimate government in Syria?
The Syrian, there's this umbrella group, Syrian National Coalition that's actually made up of mostly exiles, and they actually have a seat in the Arab League. But the UN, Syria still has a seat at the United Nations, but we do not. We withdrew our ambassador, obviously, and they withdrew theirs from the United States. So it's nothing we can't go back on, and we can,
Diplomatic posturing.
Yeah, it is. But, I'm of the belief you just don't do that because you engage in diplomacy, not with your friends, you engage in diplomacy with your enemies. You engage in peace talks, not with your friends because you're already at peace. You engage in peace talks with your enemies. So I always think there should be a line of communication open, and we cut that off. And there's people who make the opposite view that you have to make a stand. You have to, the U.S. is the global superpower, so that this sends a strong message and so forth. But I think we missed out on a lot during the Civil War when there were perhaps early on opportunities to resolve it much more peacefully and quickly than what happened.
So for people who maybe don't know, you had a long-running relationship with Assad. You wrote a book about him. You got a bunch of in-person meetings with him. One of the things you sent me was this Abraham Path Initiative.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yep.
It was an article written about, which to me it kind of reminded me of sort of ping-pong diplomacy in that this idea of a pilgrimage path, a hiking trail, essentially, if you will, through Syria kind of was an angle at improving relations between the West and Syria.
That was not the intent of the founders. It was founded by William Urey from Harvard University and a guy I work with quite a bit and on a number of different things, not just this. And it's a very ambitious touristic walking trail, a lot like the Camino de Santiago in Portugal and Spain.
I can't remember the name. I wrote Spain there.
Yeah, and it can take a long time to put into place. It's already it's a walking trail through to increase intercultural understanding. As well as bring touristic, economic.
But Syria
gain.
was a holdout in this idea.
Syria, right? It roughly retraces the purported itinerant, walkings of the prophet Abraham, or Ibrahim in Arabic, Abraham in Hebrew, and who is, of course, a patriarch to Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, and so he's meant as someone to bring different cultures and peoples together through this walking trail, as well as bringing, economic revenue through tourism to these countries. And so the idea started in the early 2000s, and they mapped out, a walking trail in Turkey, in Jordan, in Palestine, and Israel, where it is up and running to this day. But you want it connected. You want a contiguous walking trail. And the biggest or the longest section of this trail is Syria. And there's a big gap, obviously, between Turkey and Jordan, and it's Syria. And we always knew that was going to be the hardest nut to crack. And when I say we, the founders, I wasn't with this in the beginning. They came to me because they knew my relationship with Assad and my visits in Syria, networking and writings on Syria. They came to me around 2007 because they had tried once and didn't get anywhere. And I brought it to Assad, who loved the idea. He really loved the idea and said, well, before I can give public support, and that's the one thing we needed to get. I tried so hard to get it, and from reading that how hard I tried, and we never got it. He almost gave it because if he gave his imprimatur, saying, I am for this, let's go with it, everybody would have gotten in line. The religious officials, the security officials, the mukhabarat, intelligence, military, business community, they all would have gotten in line. And we did numerous trips between 2007 and 2009 to try to develop this core of religious and business support, and we did to a large degree. But there were groups in Syria, some religious folks, because of what I call the minaret wars in the article. These are religious centers, Islamic centers, that wanted to be in the middle of this and not some others. And there was competition. And so one Islamic center leaked some information to the state-owned newspaper that accused our initiative as being a Zionist plot, Israeli-U.S. plot to undermine. And that's all you need to do.
It's like fake news over there.
Oh, yeah.
You just use it for everything.
And that's all those groups, and I'm just going to say those groups for now, who were against this from the beginning, who didn't particularly like my relationship with Bashar al-Assad either, because they thought I had some undue influence over him. That mobilized them to really move against us, and boy, did they move against us.
They just have nothing better to do. I mean, it's a hiking trail.
It's their whole conceptual paradigm. It's totally different. They see the world as threatening. They see they're
zero-sum game.
Yeah, and they really do. I mean, and I knew this would be something that'd be hard to overcome. Is like this group of Americans from Harvard were going over there And they're say, you're going to tell us about the Prophet Ibrahim? You're going to tell us about the Prophet Abraham? You're going to do, I mean, that's so conceited.
Yeah.
So typically Western, you know? So we had to fight all that. That's why we wanted to include as many locals as possible and get them on board and put them out front locally. But because one of the biggest problems is that that Israel was involved.
Well, I mean, that was the best part of the article, I thought, was the discussion of sort of how the Zionist stuff got brought up, but then you were able to bring up that the Palestinians had actually supported it going through the Golan.
In fact, one of my first visits over there, and I met with the leading sheikh, Sunni Sufi sheikh, in Damascus, one of the most powerful in the country, and he brought a bunch of his religious officials, imams, with him, and we had this big dinner. And he asked me to lead the prayers. I couldn't think of anything, so I just did the Beatitudes, you know, my Catholic upbringing. And they were like, "Wow, that's pretty good." I was thinking, well, it's not mine originally; it belongs to someone else, you know. But it went very well, and you know, after our dinner and the prayers and everything, we retired, and we had this intense debate. And I know I've been in these intense debates over a slew of different issues in Syria and elsewhere in the Middle East. Ultimately, if you're talking to an American, it comes down to Israel and the Palestinians.
Right.
You know, and they're saying until we get the Golan Heights back, which Israel took in the '67 Arab-Israeli war, there can be no justice until the Palestinians have a state and stop, you know, and the Israelis stop oppressing them. We cannot enter into this. And so I listened to this. There was about 12, 14 of them. They all had their point of view, and I was like, yeah, okay. You know, you make a good point and all that. Oh, by the way, this is a brochure. It's from the Palestinian territories. They're already engaged in the Abraham Path Initiative. They have people walking. So I ask you, if they're already engaged in this, why can't you? And I had that in my back pocket just for this moment. And they all said, oh, well. And then they all got on board. Unfortunately, it wasn't, you know, some of the groups that we really needed on board.
I mean, would it be that much of an economic benefit for Syria or any area?
It can be. It's not. Yeah, it's not a slew of 5-star hotels along the coast.
But
or
neither
something
is
like
the Camino.
That. Yeah, exactly. You know, but particularly of interest to Syria, and Bashar al-Assad himself is improving the image of the country in the West internationally, and this would do so. But there's always that tension about being isolated and enclosed so that you can't be infected by these pernicious plots that are constantly coming in from the outside. That's how they see the world. Versus, oh, this might be really cool. This might help us economically, help with our image, which really needs help. You know, in the West, after being on the other side of the Arab-Israeli conflict, the other side from the Western perspective, the superpower Cold War. So there's always that tension.
The Lebanese prime minister being assassinated sometime.
Yeah, which many people think that Syria is behind. It hasn't been proven, and Hezbollah has been charged. Hezbollah, of course, is very close to Syria. But, you know, in fact, I was with Assad soon after the assassination. I looked in his eye and I said, "Did you do it? Did you order it?" And he looked me straight in the eye and said, "Yeah, no, I'm just teasing." Yeah, dude, of course, no, I'm teasing. Anyone hearing this? No, I'm teasing.
You sound like Trump right now.
Yeah, right.
Like, I asked Putin, and he said it wasn't him. Why would he lie?
We saw each other. We felt each other. No, he said, no, I did not. And you know all those psychological tricks. If you look away or something, he didn't look away and all that. And I surmise that some groups within Syria, you know, thought they were protecting the president and protecting. So I have some very interesting ideas, which I cannot talk about.
Sure.
Sorry. But
I mean, there has to be some amount of Assad just basically hanging on and allowing certain groups to operate somewhat independently.
Yeah, there's always, and he's talked about giving them too much leeway. In fact, I don't know if I talked about it last time. One time I went over there. It was in the midst of this Abraham Path Initiative stuff where, you know, whenever I arrived to see him, cars picked me up at the airport and they took me to a VIP thing. I got, you know, VIP treatment the whole way. This one time there were no cars to pick me up, no one meeting me. So I went through customs and I said, okay, well, you know, fine. Maybe they got the wrong schedule or something, you know, but
hey guys, I'm David Lesch.
Yeah,
come on, guys.
Oh, seriously,
Where's
come
my
on.
VIP?
I have a meeting with your president. Yeah. And
you told us where you got locked in the room. And,
this is when I got locked in the room. And did I tell you this last time? Yeah. Okay, well, anyway, it was not a good experience. They were interrogating me. They did the Russian roulette thing with a pistol in front of me and all that sort of stuff. But that's, you know, like the left hand of intelligence sometimes doesn't know what the right hand of the presidency is doing and vice versa. And when I saw Assad the next morning, and that's how I got out. I finally said, call the freaking office of the president. and you'll find out I actually have a meeting with your boss.
Yeah.
And I think, as I said last time, it was almost worth the entire 3 hours of interrogation to see the colonel who was interrogating me and just turning so pale, saying, "Oh my God, my career is over." Anyway, I saw Assad the next morning. He said, "How's your trip?" And as he usually does. And I said, "Oh, other than the 3-hour interrogation at the airport, it was fine." He was aghast. He said, "Oh, let me get to the bottom of this." And I told him, I said, "Mr. President, unless you get a handle on these guys, the intelligence guys, they're going to come back and haunt you." And that's exactly what happened with the Syrian uprising, because it was overzealous intelligence agents who roughed up some teenagers in the southern Syrian city of Daraa, and their family members and friends and cohorts, they protested all this in Daraa against the government, and there were some shootings and so forth, and that's the ember that lit the Syrian uprising.
So was the security forces for or against the API?
They were
neutral, publicly.
They were not for it.
Oh. Well, they probably just don't want a bunch of random people walking through their country, right?
They're very protective. Insular, very suspicious.
Because I'm not an academic like you, this brings me to another pop culture thing I wanted to talk to you about. I asked you if you watch this Netflix show that has Sacha Baron Cohen.
The Spy?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And of course academic to me. It was like, oh, it's a bad portrayal.
Academic
whatever.
you.
But part of that.
Actually, no, because an academic wouldn't know the difference. It's someone who actually is involved in some of these things, actually knows the difference between reality and make-believe.
You said it's classic Israeli propaganda that makes Syrians look bad. Something along those lines.
Probably. That sounds like me. I mean, it was made
but the story's fantastic.
Israel.
An Israeli spy ends up becoming the defense minister in
No, he doesn't
Syria.
become the defense minister, and he comes close to defense minister in
Deputy
Syria.
defense minister.
No, he doesn't even become deputy. He becomes an aide or close to him. That's one of the... You see the problem?
I'm going to Google it, because I was Googling this during the
someone
thing.
said, you have to watch Madam Secretary.
Wait, what was his name?
Shut up. Eli Cohen.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Or Eliyahu
Okay, go
Cohen.
on about Madam Secretary.
Well, Madam Secretary, they said it's a great show. So I tuned in one time, and it just gets frustrating. If you watch lawyer shows, and you must get frustrated. I can't watch this because this is
the chief advisor to the Minister of Defense.
Yeah, that's not
pretty high ranking.
That's not the deputy.
I mean, you could call it whatever.
Oh, it's very high ranking.
Okay.
It's the
anyway,
highest
it's a fascinating story.
It's an incredible story.
But you haven't watched the show, so the show really, really lays into the fact that the Syrian intelligence forces always were skeptical of him, and the president liked him and was won over by him. My kind of question is, does a single incident like that, where a country's kind of embarrassed publicly on a global scale, where the Syrian intelligence had it right but the president had it wrong, sort of create a culture for decades to come that the Syrian intelligence gets a little more leeway and a little more power from a single incident like that?
It could. I mean, they can always point back to that, although it's, how many years ago now? 50 years, but 45 years, whatever it is. They can always point to that. Even in Israel, there have been divisions between the civilian leadership and military intelligence and Mossad and so forth over the,
or here during Hoover.
Or here, yeah, exactly. So, when one is right and the other is wrong, and they keep referring to that in meetings, look, you better follow us this time because look what happened then. So it can do that. I just think that there's been so many conspiracies in Syria amongst Syrians themselves and outside powers ever since their independence in 1946, that it creates this conspiratorial mindset and attitude and paranoia that permeates Syrian society.
So we're going through that right now as a country. We're going through this weird, conspiracies are becoming mainstream in a way they never had. In countries like that, is that government-driven, media-driven, even though the media is government, or is that just old hens sitting around talking in a room and it just takes off?
It's definitely government, state-run media-driven because it provides an excuse to maintain the security state. If there are not all these conspiracies, why do we have to have this heavy-handed intelligence apparatus? Why do we have to have this size of an army and stuff like that? So it is self-serving, but on the other hand, there's been enough real conspiracy, enough real imperialism and machination from outside sources to make everything plausible.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's the problem. I mean, one of the things, you get this not just from Syria, but all over the world, is their overestimation of the capabilities of the CIA. I remember having a dinner with Madeleine Albright after she was, after her stint as Secretary of State. And And
I remember having dinner with Madeleine Albright one night. Maybe
once I said that,
of course you're.
Once I said that, I knew you were going to always name dropping again. Anyway, but we were talking about this, and she looks at me and says, "I wish we were only that good. In our dreams, can we actually control every event in every other country when it's usually just happenstance? And if it's successful, it's like by accident, rather
than... The 70s was kind of the heyday of the CIA.
50s.
Okay.
50s. There were a lot of successes in
When at the
Iran,
70s, when we were South
Dominican
America.
Republic.
Oh, was the South America stuff in the 50s?
Yeah, okay. 50s, some in the 60s, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And we tried in Vietnam, that stuff didn't work out too well.
And then everybody just 60s. Got better at catching it or heading it off?
That's the thing. If your default line is you're suspicious of every American that comes in, I am sure a number of people in the Middle East, and I know this, they thought I was CIA. Because why else is he here?
Yeah.
How does he know so much about us? Why is he interested? In fact, one high-level...
CIA guys in the movies always are way cooler looking than you. They always have beards, and they're like scraggly.
Well,
you wouldn't make it in the movies.
That's why they hired me.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't talk about that. No. They didn't hire me. But they think this. And it's difficult. And in a way, you can make it work for you. Because it's like, if they think this, well, then I got access and some juice, then just being this academic interested in this or representing the State Department or something like that. So a lot of times they enhance your position and value, and you can make good use of it, but also it can complicate things on many different levels.
But you definitely have your rooms tapped, right? And your phones while you're there?
Oh, yeah. Well, in Israel, I got my rooms tapped. Huh. And in Syria all the time, in the vents, you could see the cameras. Really? One time I was just pissed. I think it was after that time I went to the camera and I just went, for those of you listening to radio, I'm giving the middle finger. Yeah. I just went like that. And so.
Podcasts aren't on the radio, Dr. Lesch. Mm-hmm. Podcasts don't play on the radio.
I'm sorry, what on streaming? Is that what it is?
Yeah, that would work.
You see, I'm modern. I'm technologically.
For those of you listening on the old AM radio, that's right. To a podcast.
I still have that.
All right. So you're not going to watch the Ellie Cohen, The Spy. It's fantastic. Sacha Baron Cohen's really hit his stride. If you've seen the Chicago 8, 7, whichever one it was, also fantastic. I think the show they call the Chicago 8 because they initially tried one of the Black Panthers with the group.
Right.
And the idea was to get that racist effect on all the other people. That was sort of the idea on trying.
As a Black Panther movement. All that
Wouldn't let him have his lawyer, so he finally got mistried out.
I may watch it at some point. Maybe part of it is Sacha Baron Cohen being the star. I can't get Borat out of my mind.
I know.
It's difficult, but he pull it off?
He's fantastic.
Yeah. But it's just, again, going back to Madam Secretary, I watched an episode and I was like, this isn't how it happens. It's just not. And so I get frustrated. And so I know I'm going to get frustrated with this. I'm sure it's well done. I'm sure a lot of it is true. I think I told you a group, this was 3 years ago, a group contacted me who knew that I had high-level contacts in Syria. And there have been many groups, some family members of Eli Cohen and others who have tried to get his remains back from Syria. This is an obsession in Israel over all of those who have fallen. And of course, he's a hero. He has streets named after him and whatnot. And they contacted me and said, can you use your contacts to, maybe we can start a discussion. We're willing to pay for it and lots of money to pay for his return, the return of his remains. And I got him in touch with, the relevant people in Syria, and nothing, I suppose nothing came of it. Maybe that did. There were some conditions around it, but it was just so interesting to me that's after so much time. What's that, 67 to 17? Is that?
It was even before the 67 war.
Yeah, that he was taken, 61 to 65. He was executed in 65. The information he gave, to transfer to the Israelis, depending on your viewpoint, but
so they said one of the things he
instrumental in Israeli taking
when
the
he was
Heights.
A businessman. He had connections in the military. They would take him to the Golan Heights to show sort of how they looked over Israel farming communities.
Yeah,
and they said he planted trees.
He was a social butterfly. It was brilliant the way that Mossad did this. They first put him in Argentina. And pretending to be an expat Syrian, and he held these parties. And
I was reading the Wikipedia. A lot of the stuff seemed to track sort of his history.
Yeah. And so they brought him to Syria, and he held all these parties, which is I've been to some of these, but not his, but obviously, but some of these parties were just networking, and and he went all out,
networking.
right?
I mean, the stuff that no one talks about.
I didn't go to any of
afterwards.
those parties.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't go to
All
any of
right,
those
all
parties. But yes, some treats were provided at the.
But they said he planted trees for the soldiers in Syria,
Yeah.
but it actually was marking the tunnels.
Yeah,
of
I don't
the
know.
Syrian
I don't
army.
know if that's true or not, but it's
fascinating.
It could be. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. I'm sure there are all sorts of stories revolving around this, but and there's some different views on whether the information he gave to Israel, which it used to take the Golan Heights in the '67 war, whether it was actually crucial or not. It certainly was at least helpful, I think, or confirmed existing information that Israel got through aerial reconnaissance.
Another big part of it was that he was instrumental in, I guess, Israel bombing Osama bin Laden's father's construction company's attempt to dam a major river going into Israel.
Yes, in the Golan Heights, the three tributaries that feed the Jordan River, which is the lifeblood of Israel. Yeah. The Jordan River isn't very big, but it feeds into the aquifers, which basically allow Israel to drink and water. And they were going to block the tributaries that run through that feed into the Jordan River. And so, he fed information to the Israelis that said, this is what they're going to do: bomb the bulldozers. And at that time, I always say in class when I teach this portion of it, it's like the last thing in the world I wanted to be is a Syrian bulldozer driver, no protection, and here's the Israeli Air Force, coming in and just bombing the hell out of you.
But was Saudi Arabia funding that?
I don't have any information on that.
But I mean, it was weird to see it was Osama bin Laden.
It was
connection.
an Arab League sanctioned action, and so the Saudis, yes, probably Saudi money was involved.
They were that organized back then, the Arab League.
This was a way. It's very complicated. Gamal Abdel Nasser, the god in the Arab world at the time of the president of Egypt, he wanted to try to find a way of reacting to the Israeli diversion of the Jordan River to make the Negev, it was called the Israeli National Water Carrier Project, to make the Negev Desert green, and the whole Arab world, of course, comes to Nasser and says, you got to do something. Go to war with Israel. You're the leader of the Arab world, Arab nationalism. You've been all this anti-Zionist talk, and Nasser's like going, oh, damn. I didn't expect these guys would actually want me to go to war with them. Yeah. So what can I do? Get Arab League sanction. What can I do to avoid war but seem like I'm doing something? Oh, okay. Well, let's try to block the three tributaries that lead in Jordan River. Oh, and by the way, let's create the Palestine Liberation Organization. So that's when the PLO was created as a way to siphon off pressure on Nasser to actually go to war. He could actually say, look what I'm doing, these things short of war. Ultimately, the irony is that he did go to war, and he was right. He should have never gone to war because
that's when he lost the Suez Canal.
He lost Suez Canal, the Sinai Peninsula, yeah. And really his job, in essence, he was delegitimized.
Were you ever interviewed by Larry King?
No.
He interviewed 30,000 people, and you were not one of them.
I'm sorry.
I did see the. I watched the one with him and Yasser Arafat, and who was the prime minister of Israel at the time?
Shimon Peres, or
it was Shimon Peres, Yasser Arafat, and maybe Clinton.
Yitzhak Rabin. Yitzhak Rabin was the prime minister.
That's what I wanted to say actually.
Okay.
But man, he got some great interviews.
Oh, he is incredible. Yeah. I mean, he got everybody. Anybody was anybody, which is why I wasn't on there because.
I mean, he had children. Zookeepers.
Well, yeah, exactly. A few.
So another thing that has happened in your recent San Antonio years is you've become close with the mayor, sort of close with what's going on with the mayor. I mean, it's fair to say prior to Ron, you weren't very involved.
No, I didn't even know
politics.
when the mayoral elections were.
Okay.
Frankly, I didn't, because that's not my radar. Nationally, internationally is where I focus. That's on my radar screen. San Antonio wasn't. Half the time, I didn't even know who the mayor was, and that's my bad.
You think it's because you live way up north?
Maybe, and I'm not from here. So I have my worlds, and that wasn't one of them. But a mutual friend, Bill Clover, was a local icon, dear friend, and he introduced us early in Ron's campaign for mayor, and we hit it off. And I really believe in him. I think he has incredible integrity, very, very smart. Do I agree with everything he says? No, but that's why I think he values my friendship and advice. So through that relationship, I've become more aware of San Antonio, aware of what's needed in San Antonio. I've become involved with the Violence Prevention Division within the San Antonio Metropolitan Health District, as well as Stand Up SA, which is a frontline group which tries to reduce violence in some of the high violence areas in San Antonio.
Sure.
And in fact, I'd love to have some of those people.
Yeah, you mentioned
on
it,
on your show. I think they're incredible people, incredible stories. I mean, talk about risking their lives to save other lives.
Right.
That's what these guys do. And I hosted a dinner for them just to, as one citizen in San Antonio, thanking them for their effort. This staff of Stand Up SA. And the stories, oh my God! I mean, literally, they are between two gang groups with guns drawn, ready to fire each other, and they're using they're trained in the techniques developed by Cure Violence. I talked about that last time. Cure Violence is
I had the director on.
That's right, Gary Slutkin, dear friend, and I'm on the board of that. And so I've been I brought Cure Violence to San Antonio, which has informed. Actually, brought them back to San Antonio. They were here some years ago and then left. And they just signed a new contract.
They were just like, no violence here. See y'all later.
Funding.
We're done.
Funding was the issue. No, there was violence, but it was a funding issue. And but they're back. And
what do you think Ron's sort of major challenges are coming into this election? The mayor elections in May. Announced so far is Brock House.
Has he announced formally? Or just indicated?
Whatever. He's running.
Yeah.
And then sort of a school teacher, a attorney, but it's going to be a Brockhouse Nuremberg. What do you think the challenges are for Ron?
I think the challenge for Ron is reaching across various lines and barriers that have come up or been created or perceived to have been created between him and certain groups in San Antonio, in the business community, where he's really improved his relationship, I think. Ron is perceived to be left of center, and he is in a lot of things, but I think he is bipartisan in many ways and can position himself that way. So I think that's a challenge. I hope that this is a slam dunk re-election, and he really gets that mandate to the extent that a San Antonio mayor can do in a council manager form of government, but at least that moral mandate, the bully pulpit to really move forward in some of the things he wants to do in transportation and so. But right now, of course, everything's pandemic, and everyone's been sidetracked by that, including the Biden administration. So,
do you track Bear Facts? It's a nonprofit website that sort of does polling.
No,
but they've been polling Ron, and there for a while he was kind of stratosphere, but he's still way up in sort of approvability ratings.
I think he needs to. I mean, frankly speaking, he needs to avoid a Chick-fil-A type of thing, which almost derailed his.
Which is so weird to think that that's the kind of stuff that can sway an
that's
election.
But
I agree with you
because it's a sociocultural marker, and it galvanizes a certain section of the community. And Brockhouse tapped into it like he should have, and he did very well. But I think Ron got involved in that in a way that because Ron goes sometime, where his heart goes, and
he got into it in the wrong way too.
He did. And
it was all defensive the whole time.
Yeah, and I thought there were better ways, and I think looking back, he probably changed some things, but to avoid those type of things, and there are these pitfalls or landmines out there, and I guess sometimes you have to be a political animal in an election year. This is why I wish the election cycle was 3 or 4 years rather than every 2 years, because you're always running for election.
Yeah, they should be 2 4-year terms.
Which is ridiculous. Yeah. And it doesn't allow a mayor or a city council member to really dig into the stuff they want to do because they're constantly running for re-election.
Right. So my advice is worthless, but I think Ron should take his very big mandate on his jobs program, which I think it passed by 73.
Yeah.
Without any facts. I mean, the problem with that jobs program is nobody knows what it means.
You had lots of doubts about it, just lack of information.
I still have a lot of doubts because there's no information. It feels like $150 million slush fund to me, which people want $150 million jobs program. They've made clear through their votes, and still there's no additional information about how is this going to be run, how is the city getting looped in, where are those high-paying jobs, and
Well,
when I reached out to him, I told him that.
It is a real program. Who
runs it?
It's getting out.
You don't know
no.
who's involved. You don't know.
Well, yes, I do. I've been to the workforce training sites at SAMSAT in Port San Antonio, San Antonio Museum of Science.
But it's
Technology.
being run through the city's job training program. So one employee now all of a sudden has an additional 150 million, and how many jobs? There's no infrastructure that has been ramped up. There is some association with Alamo colleges, which is kind of amorphous. The idea that Code Up or Rackspace are involved have been kind of floated, but hasn't really been put out there.
Well, I think to a degree, the overwhelming vote in favor of this maybe made city government a little complacent about it. You know what I mean?
If I'm Brockhouse, I say Ron passed $150 million slush fund, and he still is not telling you where that money is. It is his pet project that's going to go to his buddies. That's what I'm doing if I'm Brockhouse, because that's Brockhouse's personality.
Ron has to find, and his staff need to find an answer to that, and
I agree.
show where the money is going and what's happening. And it's in the early stages, obviously, but they need an infrastructure that can say, this is what will happen in year 1, year 2. I'm sure there's a business plan. There should be.
I'm
sure there is.
I had the campaign manager on here, and he couldn't answer some of those questions too.
For instance, the business.
David, I'm with you. It's just not there.
I know, and there should be. The Violence Prevention Division has. They sent me this huge business plan, which is brilliant. It makes sense. All these different programs. It was carefully conceived and constructed. It just came on board. It has necessary funding. It came on board October 1st. All these different programs. It's integrated, comprehensive, from education, of children and businesses to stopping violence on the front lines.
Right.
The whole gamut, the whole spectrum. And I would hope that this is something that, if not already, develops along those lines, where it has a very detailed business plan, and this is where you're going to go. And business plans are dime a dozen, all that, but you need some sort of.
I think there should be a call to arms. And this is what I said to Ron. You've got businesses like mine that have been blessed and been able to weather the storm, and I take interns and train them. So paralegal interns and them, we do that. And
nice water, by the way. This is very nice water.
But there should be some effort to loop in more of the city and employers to be part of this. So I would do that for free. But there's no call to arms among our brothers and neighbors.
They brought in a bunch of business people to support this. They have, I think, HEB and other ones to hire these people once they go through this program, or they have commitments to hire these people.
Right.
So that's
forklift operators or some of them, which those jobs are good too. But part of the idea was this higher paying class of jobs, which I'm telling you, you're close with Ron. I've dug
into the tech world, basically, is where we're going.
I'm just saying, it's a vulnerability.
If you look at if you visit the workforce site at Port San Antonio, it's very high tech. It's trying to train.
Yeah, but that was existing before. You understand, the fact that you and I can have a discussion, we're both pretty well informed,
tuned in,
and we still really don't know what's going on. I just think it's a big vulnerability.
You're right. It needs definition, and they need to do that
because it's a lot of money.
Yeah,
and it's money that.
But this is something that's become a pet thing for you, right? This is really something you want to find out more as a concerned citizen.
I do. I think it's a great idea. Please tell us how this is better for us.
Do you think that those who are going to vote in May are as educated, concerned, and looked into as much as you?
But I think Brockhouse.
But is he going to communicate? Is he going to get that information across?
I think that is one of his gifts, is finding that one wedge and just exploiting it. And I think
you might be right.
Give him 3 talking points and he's going to kick your ass with it.
The Chick-fil-A thing.
Yeah, and this is a really good one. So it became more of a pet project for me, actually.
But it's a different issue. He's going to come after a program that got approved by 70% that creates jobs, or supposed to create jobs. What downside? It's not a cultural issue. It's not a religious issue. Where's the money? Where's the money for this? I want to see the business plan. Does that really resonate with a voting public?
I think government waste resonates exactly with those type of voters that he's going for.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, he's admitted he's going for the Trump.
Yeah, of course.
The Trump people, and they're concerned with that. So
yeah. So this became more of an issue in my brain after I had the episode with the campaign manager.
I got an episode.
Yeah, I got multiple phone calls and emails from people that are like, we're just trying to find out where that money's going. Because I had sort of asked those questions, but it was a real issue for people. specifically people that were really struggling during the pandemic, who were wondering why that money wasn't propping up business. It was going to train people in some unknown way. So anyway, that's my thoughts. You disagree with me, obviously, but
no, I don't disagree. I agree with you that there has to be much more, better explanation for this and much more delineation of the whole program and how it's going to proceed, where the money is, where it's going, all that sort of stuff. And the Nuremberg campaign better have an answer for all that.
Yeah, because I think Brockhouse would love to go after him on the pandemic, but I don't think he's got enough.
He can't.
Yeah. But he does have something here, and I just think it's an unforced error. Like, you can fix this. Just give us some information. Come out with a big plan. I think it's easy to do. David, another thing I want to talk to you about before we're done here is that you have been one of my biggest fans on the show. You have helped me get guests. Tell me about some of your favorite guests
that I've
listened to.
That I've listened to.
Yeah, on the show. Because I think you were maybe guest number 4 or 5, and then you actually were really good about listening to him for a while. And recommending.
Yeah, some of the people, and I forget some of their names that you had early on that were pandemic center.
Charisse Allegrini.
Right? I thought was very good. My friend Gary Slutkin.
Yeah, he was great.
Ron was great.
Yeah.
Nuremberg was great.
Gary was great because he was so involved with the pandemic as well as cure violence.
Yes, exactly. And he's one of the leading epidemiologists in the world. You couldn't have anyone better to discuss that. And he's most willing to do this sort of thing to get the word out, especially early on.
Yeah,
to get the word out. He was. I don't know if he talked about it on his show, but he went on some really right wing, conspiracy. This pandemic's a conspiracy, anti-maskers. He purposely went on.
Good for him.
Just and he was great, very diplomatic. He said, "Well, I see your point of view, but how about this? How about this?" So I really appreciate what he's done.
He's got that affect too.
Yeah,
that he can handle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he's dealt with Ebola in Africa.
Did you listen to Eric Cooper of the Food Bank?
Yes,
yeah, that was timely.
As well as the guy with the hair.
The sex change doctor,
yes,
Dr. Crane.
that was hilarious.
The day after I published, I woke up and I'm getting so many comments to my YouTube channel that I had to turn it off. And one of his, foes, I will say, have found the fucking episode and just tweeted to attack my YouTube page.
Oh, who's the guy on Facebook? I got on maybe there's more than one, but there's this one guy recently, like in the last couple of weeks. I mean, he just laid into you. I was like, where is this dude coming from? He was like making stuff up.
Oh, just attacking me personally?
Yeah,
and
the
guy that called me an
idiot. He thinks you're a friend. Yes.
He's a personal trainer.
Oh, okay. I mean,
bored.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Get a life type of thing. But no, Tom Kaiser was. In fact, I just had lunch with Tom a couple days ago.
I did not expect to enjoy that one, but I did.
Yeah. Well, if you love baseball, you've got to love that because there's few people I know who are as knowledgeable about the game at so many different. We talked yesterday. He's so. Oh my God, he's like what is happening to the minor league? He got out at the right time because there's no more president of the Texas League. The MLB, Major League Baseball, Manfred, and the corporate bosses in New York have gotten rid of all the minor league presidents and now have regional heads.
No shit.
So there will be 2 or 3 or 4 minor leagues, if not more, with one regional head. And as Tom said, if that regional head is in Atlanta for the South, that includes Texas or something like that, so many times Tom had to drive out as the president of Texas. They had to drive out and deal with a dispute between umpires and the team, or just little shit.
Are they all under the MLB umbrella?
Yep. MLB is a power play.
Okay.
They've gotten rid of about a quarter to a third of all the minor league teams, consolidating under them. Now, in the long haul, I can't say if it's good or bad. It's bad for a lot of cities who've lost these teams, and very successful cities, successful minor league cities. But there's going to be, a lot less attention given to certain things that arise in games that someone like Tom had to deal with on a everyday basis.
Yeah.
So it's much more impersonal, much more business and corporate, and is that the way everything's going? Who knows? I can't say. 20 years from now, we can look back and say that was a good move or that sucked.
Right.
But right now, I mean, Tom was just like, I got out at the right time, because if I didn't, I would be on the street right now, not without a job. So
yeah, he was just a like encyclopedic knowledge about baseball and specific
as
minor league.
Back a long time ago, I taught a history of baseball course. History of baseball in American society, looking at American history through the prism of the history of baseball. And he would always come and give a talk in my class, and it was a freshman course. It was kind of like, they want you to teach something that's not in your field, but that you're interested in, that you have a passion about. And Tom, first time, he said, well, what should I talk about? I said, I'll just name drop. In this case, just name drop. Just talk about your experiences with Pete Rose. He talked about Pete Rose thing and all that. That's all you need to do.
We didn't talk much Pete Rose. A little bit, but I thought we were going to spend more time on it. And we got caught up in wild stories of minor league.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. He told you about the time that he was with the Cincinnati Reds. Pete Rose is the manager, and Tom was in the back with his radar gun. And getting the pitcher's speed, to see if it's slowing down as the innings go on. And he got a call from Pete Rose on the the thing he has in his ear, and Pete says, "Hey Tom, how did the so and so the Pirates do today? What was the score of that?" And Tom didn't think any of it at the time, but he was checking on his bets.
Do you think he should be banned from the Hall of Fame? Man, I mean, in light of Tiger Woods and Barkley,
I mean,
Jordan.
The character clause thing is more important in baseball than any other sport. Yet you have Ty Cobb, who was an out-and-out racist. You have Babe Ruth, who was a lewd, drunken.
You have the steroid era.
You have the steroid, but the steroid guys. That's the argument. The steroid guys aren't getting in, and their argument is, okay, so you'd rather have someone who takes steroids, keep them out, and keep all these racist, decadent major leaguers in. But the thing is steroids enhance your performance.
Yeah.
It's on the field, and there is a character clause in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And this is the Curt Schilling argument. Curt Schilling is not getting in because he's a racist. Yeah. I mean, he's an Islamophobe, he's right-wing conspiracy nuthead. But he's saying, I didn't take steroids. You let Ty Cobb in. He was much more racist than I was, So let me in. Is it on-field performance or not? But it's the perception of the sports writers. Sure. I mean, if I was a sports writer, could I, given what my stance, my, humanism, open, heart, open-minded, could I let Curt Schilling in? Could I vote for him? It'd be a tough call.
Yeah.
It'd be a tough call, so...
David, who do you think? So I always end these with top three. Who do you think I should get to come on this year?
How long have we been on?
1 hour and 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I want you to get on
Sepulveda.
Juan Sepulveda at Trinity University, who's you've already contacted. Great political. I wish you could have got him on before the election. But, things were. Your life was crazy at the time, and so forth. But still have him on because he is so knowledgeable on urban politics. He'll give you a lot more information about what's going on in San Antonio than I would. Sishan Siv, I haven't connected you with. I told you I would. And Sishan is an incredible story, an incredible human being. He lives in San Antonio now. I've known him for a while. He was ambassador to the UN from the George H.W. Bush administration.
Oh, wow.
He survived the Khmer Rouge in
is that right?
Cambodia or Kampuchea, and he was it 15 or 17 members of his family were killed. The movie Killing Fields with Sang Hung Nor and all that. He lived it. I mean, that could be about him. He's escaped. He came to New York with $2 in his pocket and somehow ended up close to George H.W. Bush and became it's a success story.
Yeah.
He loves America. He's so giving. He's such a humanitarian. Huh?
What's he do now?
He's retired, but he does a lot of humanitarian work.
Cool.
I have this great, wonderful story of Sishan, which, I'm sure he would like to tell you, but just as a, wet your whistle to the listeners, and I think he would come on, is that he learned English in Singapore, which is another story, which I'll tell you after this. He got a job at a fast food restaurant in New York, one of his first jobs. He had halting English. And some guy says, can I have a Big Mac or something, but hold the lettuce. And so he comes out, gives the Big Mac, and he's holding lettuce in his hands. He said, hold the lettuce.
That's awesome.
It's a literal, not idiomatic, it's a literal meaning. He learned English. This is one of the a couple of years ago, we were having dinner together, and we never knew this about each other, but he learned English in Singapore. I was talking about a good friend of mine, Sir Sam Fowle, who was a British diplomat. He passed away about 10 years ago in his 90s. One of the most amazing men I ever met. He was in the British Navy in Singapore in 1942 when it fell to the Japanese. His ship was sunk. He was taken prisoner, spent the rest of the war in a Japanese internment camp. It was awful, but he learned 10 languages there because of all the different nationalities that were imprisoned there, and he really knew them. He really knows them. He became ambassador to Iran. He was in Iran during the Mossadegh coup. He was in Iraq in '58 during the Iraqi coup and revolution. I mean, I always kidded him. So, is this just a coincidence wherever you serve as ambassador or deputy ambassador or whatever or commissioner that these coups happen? An amazing, amazing man. He has an autobiography, which is really a love story of him and his wife, and through the prism of all these different experiences. But he was in Singapore. He was High Commissioner to Singapore in the 70s. Sishan was there learning English. And I told Sishan about this story about Sir Sam Fowle, and he goes, does he have a daughter named Margaret or Anne? I go, yeah. And did he, and were they in Singapore? Yes. He learned English from Sir Sam Fowle's daughter.
Wow.
The next day, who is my dear friend. It's one of these incredible small world things. He sent me...
In Singapore.
In Singapore.
Not like small world San Antonio.
And Sishan sent me an excerpt from his autobiography, and which is amazing. You should read it, which you will if you have him on, I'm sure. And the excerpt is about Sir Sam Fowle and his daughter.
Oh, cool.
And he sent me a picture of it. And, it's just, I'm blessed to have, have these people in my world, have touched me in my world, have guided me. Sir Sam is one of my mentors. The fact that he took a liking to me, is just amazing. And, Sishan has this.
How old is Sishan?
Late 70s.
Okay.
At least. Great guy. Have him on. But he has this vision of the world that like-minded people find their way to each other, and like I found my way to you.
Well.
Or actually, you found your way to me.
I don't remember how that worked.
I don't know. It was at a bar.
Yeah, I remember we were with Tim, and you're like...
We tripped over each other.
Who's this young guy? Okay. Well, so that's 2. So who's my 3rd?
You said 3, didn't you?
Yeah. 1.
Oh, the
Shiv.
Somebody. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to put her on the spot. But somebody from the Violence Prevention Division in San Antonio with whom I've worked, brilliant, visionary, and can talk about those issues in San Antonio, which need to be talked about.
Awesome.
Yeah. So.
Well, David, thank you for doing this again. Also, seriously, thank you for getting all these people to come on my show. You've been
I will keep trying.
The most helpful
keep doing
of
my
all
best,
of them.
but I'm running out of people, man.
Well, it'll
I'll
take
keep
off
trying.
at some point, But thank you for doing this.
Sure,
and,
my pleasure, buddy.
Your drink's getting empty, so
Yeah, seriously.
we'll do this again next
Seriously.
year.
I mean, what type of joint is this?
Yeah, Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Alamo Hour. You are all what make this city so great. We hope you join us next week. In the meantime, subscribe to our podcast. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Alamo Hour or our website, alamohour.com. Until next time, Viva San Antonio!